Welcome back to my mobile home park series. I hope you found value from the first two videos. This is part three of my mobile home park series. So, in this one, I want to talk about how I did my due diligence. So, for me, fortunately, the property manager actually came with the mobile home park. So, they were currently managing it for the current owner. And obviously, they would still come on as the property manager for me as the new owner. So I'll definitely talk about the pros and cons of doing that. As you've heard, there's not very many good third-party property management companies for mobile home parks. That's why a lot of the big mobile home park syndicators they end up doing it in-house, and typically that branch of their department usually doesn't make money at all. It kind of breaks even or slightly negative. But the reason for that is there's not that many great third-party operators out there. And for some context, this operator they manage 70 mobile home parks, predominantly in the southeast, and they basically provide the offsite management. So they have like I think seven offsite property managers, and then the offsite property manager will then manage the onsite property manager who's actually there that's living in the park. So it's kind of like a three-layered system. So I, as the owner, would talk to the offsite property manager, and the offsite property manager would talk to the onsite property manager, and then the onsite property manager would then coordinate all of the general contractors and handyman if we're doing renovation. In my park, as I mentioned earlier, there was like 50 vacant park-owned homes, so obviously it's a huge renovation project. So that was kind of the infrastructure. From that, do these checks and balances. What I was hoping was the third-party operators. Obviously they manage 70 parks. They know the Southeast very well. They've been in the business for 30 years. So as a result, obviously I just said, okay, well I have a very well I'm new to mobile home parks myself, minus a few maybe 100 hours of podcast. I have someone who's been in the business for 30 years. So, hopefully they can, hold my hand and guide me. And, obviously they're the ones managing the day to day operations. In another video, I'll kind of share my experience about that. But so because of that, it kind of helped me, do the due diligence. If you do Frank and Dave's boot camp, they have a due diligence checklist. Obviously I had a really large checklist as well. So, I submitted the letter of intent. In Alabama, it's an attorney title state, so they don't have title companies. It's all done through attorneys there. I submitted my LOI, actually got it accepted. I negotiated credit financing terms that I mentioned earlier, 10% down, 5% interest only for a 6-year hold. And I was able to defer the first year of interest payments and add that onto the back end of the loan because I knew I was to spend a lot of money fixing up the park. So, that was my rationale, and the buyer was okay with that. So once I got under contract, I had a 30-day due diligence period and then 15 days to close after that. So it's a 45-day close. It's pretty fast because I'm seller financing it. There's no lender needed. So obviously for due diligence, you want to do a lot of stuff, remotely. I'm out of California. It's in Alabama. So the initial reports that we do was number one, we did a ghost ad. So that's just posting like an ad on Craigslist. You can do it on Facebook Marketplace, and you just want to gauge the market, right? So we had two ads. One was to sell the home for around maybe $40,000 to $45,000. So that's a new home. And then we also had an ad to sell a home that was, maybe around $20,000. So these are for the used homes. And then we had an ad to rent the home, a new home. So, through those ghost ads, what we found out was there's a lot of rental demand. Alabama is a renter's market, unfortunately. In mobile home parks, they always suggest the park owned home models. Every syndicator does park owned homes. But in the southeast, you're typically going to start off with a park owned home model. So you're going to be managing the homes, you're going to fix them up and then rent them out, and then eventually transition them to a rent to own model. And then, the rent to own model is basically, let's just say your rent's $500, right? And I'm going to sign a rent to own contract with you. So you're going to pay $550 a month. And that $50 extra will be applied to you owning the home. So you do that for 5 years, and they complete the 5-year contract, then you own the home and you just pay me lot rent of, $200 or $250 a month, right? So that's the kind of the model you have to use in Alabama. And that's what I learned through my experience after owning it for 15, you know, months. So, the ghost ad did well in terms of rental. A lot of Section 8 demand. Like I called Section 8, the HUD department, and they literally have a wait list of people wanting to get into homes. And I actually had some demand for people wanting to buy homes, right? So the ghost ad did well. But take the ghost ad with a grain of salt, because a lot of people will show interest about wanting to rent. A lot of people show interest in wanting to buy. A lot of people show interest in wanting to rent to own. But how many people can actually execute it and go through with it? So just take it with a grain of salt. But I did a ghost ad, and all the results look great, right? So that checked off for me. The next one was the financials. So, obviously, they use Rent Manager, so I was able to get a profit and loss statement, a T12, a recent rent roll, as well as a delinquency report. And obviously, when a park is getting ready to be sold, a lot of times what the owners will do is they'll cut down their expense significantly to make the park look a little bit better. So I experienced that. Obviously, like the expenses were a lot less than when I took over the park. My expenses were way more, way more. Um, so I was a little bit, disappointed about that, but that's on me at the end of the day. That I do that due diligence. But basically, there's a lot of tenants who weren't paying. There are tenants who were living in the tenant-owned homes, so they weren't paying their lot rent, and there were some tenants who were not paying, and basically, yeah, they were not paying the rent either. And then the property managers, of course, were saying, well, hey, it's the owner's fault. Like they're too cheap to want to evict the tenants. But more of that lesson later. um, but basically, what I came to realize is, yeah, more on that a little bit later. And then from there, basically, so obviously, when I come in, I knew I was going to have to evict a lot of people. The park owned homes, I'd evict them. The tenant owned homes, it's a lot longer of a process to evict someone when it's their home that they own, which is what people don't talk about. Obviously, if it's their home that they own, and let's say they owe you, whatever, $1,000 in lot rent, you're gonna have to go through the eviction court and basically put a lien on the house, and then once they leave, the house gets sold, and then once the house is sold, you get paid off your lien. So it's a lot of work, right? Like, for some context, like someone might owe me $1,000, but it was going to cost me like $800 to literally, evict them. So it's almost not worth it. So, for me, I just said, hey, like I'm the new owner. Let's just start you on a clean slate. If you pay me moving forward on time for like 3 months straight or 6 months straight, I'm going to remove that back debt and call it fresh start. Right. So that was my strategy going in. And then, um, so obviously, when you get started mobile home parks, a lot of people are like, oh, I want all tenant owned homes. I want a 10% cash on cash return day one. I want, some empty lots that I can infill. And yeah, that sounds great. But when, as a new mobile park operator, you're not going to find those deals, right? Like all those good deals get passed to large operators. For a new beginner, they're not going to bring you those deals. You're going to have to get stuck with these huge value add parks. But if you can do it, you can make a lot of money, right? So a lot of people, like always, like all the mobile park forums I'm in, they're like, oh, well, I want a 10 cap, 10% catch and return day one, all tenant owned homes, and maybe like 20, 30 lots I can fill. And upside to increase the lot rents. Yeah, if that deal's out there, it would not go to me. It would go to a large operator. It was not going to go to someone like me who owns one or two mobile parks, right? So as the reality, that got bursted for me. So I just said, well, this is what you have to do. You're going to have to buy a really distressed park, a lot of park owned homes, and then convert them to tenant owned homes. To take a lot more effort, a lot more time. So, like you said, you can prove the model and then flip it to a larger syndicator once that you've done the model, right? So you don't have to bring the park all the way and you still make money. Um, so from there, I did, let's see what else. They gave me all the paperwork. So they gave me utility bills, electric bill, the water bill. And then for me, I did an on-site visit with the due diligence expert from the property management. So I basically flew over to Alabama. It was a 3-day trip. Um, I was on site for like 3 days, so I can kind of explore the city, get a sense of the city. I walked the park. So when I was at the park, what I did was I had, general contractor there, the due diligence guy was there, and then the on-site property manager was there, as well as the maintenance guy. So we had a team of four, and what we did was we walked through all the currently occupied homes. So we saw the 15 tenant-owned homes, the 15 park-owned homes, and we also walked through all the vacant park-owned homes, so I can get quotes on how much it was going to cost to fix each one. So it would range from, if it was more cosmetic, light, it was maybe $2,000. If it was a full rehab, it was probably around $10,000. And then we would allocate, okay, lot 50A, it's going to cost this much to fix it up. Lot 60A, this one needs to be torn down, and to tear down a home, it costs roughly around $2,000, $2,000 to $3,000. Between you get the rented excavator to tear it down, you have to pay labor to throw it in a trash can, and pay the trash can company to take it away. So it's a lot of work there. And then basically we looked at during the walkthrough, we noticed that there were some sewage issues. They have Orangeburg piping, which breaks down over time. So we knew we had to replace, like, I think 500 feet of sewer piping with PVC, which is a lot more durable. So that was going to cost like $10,000. Um, there, we actually went to like Section 8 housing, and I found out that there's a long wait list, like of like 80 people who need housing, and we actually visited around, I think, 20 apartment complexes nearby, neighboring mobile home parks, and at all the apartment complexes, they were all full, all rent out to Section 8, and they had a wait list. So I knew that there was demand, and all the apartments are only 1 and 2 bedroom. So I knew there was a huge demand for a 3 bedroom. I went to the sheriff's department to ask about the crime for the area. So, typically the sheriffs are a little bit more negative, but, in Alabama, where the mobile park was, it was unfortunately a little bit higher crime area. But after talking to the sheriff, he did mention that, there used to be a lot of gang activity, surrounding that park. Obviously, when you have a lot of empty park owned homes and a lot of like 55 acres of land, a lot of sketchy things happen. Like drug deals, gang activity. So basically, I was trying to build a relationship with the sheriff department, saying, "Hey, like, would it be okay if I use one of my? We have an office there. Like, could you set out some of your officers there? We'll give you some, donuts, some coffee, some refreshments, some snacks, a computer, so you can, work on your reports there." And they just said, "Yeah, we'll consider that option." And then we just basically asked, like, "Oh, like, do you guys like drive through the park around the area? Do you do surveillance?" And typically they always say yes. And he did say that, that area was high in crime, but, it did improve over the past 5 years, because either those gang members were in jail or they were shot and killed, unfortunately. So from there, I basically said, okay, great. And after that, I went to the county to talk about, what it would take to, because 55 acres is quite a bit. You can average around 6 homes per acre. So that's potential to be, it's 55 acres. So what's 300 lots plus? So there's a potential to add 100 extra lots. So I went to the county to ask, like, okay, what would it take to add additional lots. And it was fortunately a very simple process, but obviously I have 170 lots to fill currently, so this is thinking like 5 to 10 years down the line. So I knew there was upside on that end. So basically that uh, took around 3 days. I would drive through the park throughout multiple times a day, early in the morning, middle of the day, at nighttime, just to see how the area was, to see if it was well lit, to see if there's any kind of sketchy activity going around. And then I would drive around the town. There's a super Walmart there, which is, really popular. Walmart is typically a big supplier of jobs. A lot of people will work there. So actually going around the town, uh, the city was roughly had a population of, I think, 20 to 30,000. It was about 45 minutes away from Montgomery, Alabama, which is a population of 200,000. So that's what you want to be. You want to be near something larger. So, I basically went through that. And at the end, we created a little plan where I was going to have to spend around $300,000 to fix up the homes, about $10,000 to fix the sewer piping issue. So I would need roughly around $300,000 to $400,000 to fix up the park. And oh boy, was I that estimate wrong. So after that, I felt comfortable with. Oh, I forgot. I since there was a gas station nearby the mobile home park, I actually did a phase one environmental study because there's no lender in the deal. It wasn't required, but I just want that to have assurance that it was okay. It's like I view it as like an insurance policy. It's only about I think it costed me $1,500 to do it. It's a 1 day survey, and they basically did an analysis saying that there's no risk of hazardous residue from the gas station. So I have that right. So what's great about that is if I were to sell my park, I can hand that report over to the potential buyers to say, hey, it's clean. The phase one study is clean, right? So I did that as like insurance policy as well as proof. So after doing all that, I came home, basically wrote out a performance plan, and my goal was to, fix up about 2 or 3 homes per month, renovating it, and then I can rent it out. So basically, I would have a team of 5 people, about 4 to 5 handyman that I was paying on an hourly basis to fix up the homes. We'd fix up roughly around 2, 3 homes a month. We'd start with the easier homes first, and then later we'd go to the heavier lift homes that costed $10,000. And if I can fix up 2 homes per month, so it's going to cost me about $5,000 to $20,000 a month, depending on how big the renovation was. They were going to fix it up, and we rent it out, and then in about a year, basically this park would be cash flowing pretty decently. So that was kind of my plan going in. So this is it for this part of the video. I just want to give a highlight as to my due diligence and what my plan was. So hopefully you found value. I hope you see you in the next video. Thank you so much.